All right. Excuse me. I'm going to edit and see it's not live. All
Take
right,
two,
everyone.
Take three.
All right, everyone. My next guest, actor, author, Emmy Award winner, starred in Marcus Welby, MD, The Rockford Files, Warehouse 13, along with a million other credits. But the one closest to my heart, Jamie Sommers, the Bionic Woman, here to celebrate 50 years of that amazing, iconic series. Please welcome Lindsay Wagner.
Hi. Thank
How
you.
are you?
Good. I'm great. Good to be here.
I had an alternative intro for you as well.
Uh-oh.
Tell me if you recognize this. She loves the theater, horseback riding, and water skiing. We'd like you to meet Lindsay Wagner.
Oh, no. That's old. Wow. You've done your homework.
The entire dating game clip of yours is gloriously on YouTube. And
Really? Wow.
yeah, that was one of your early.
Yes. Well, that's when I was modeling. That's how they started their show. They went to the model agencies and got several of the models that were legit people in that. That was that's how they did it.
Was the dating game then just all kind of just a setup thing? Was there any chance you were actually going to date that guy? Did you go on a date?
They have the date set up. They have the limo to take you to the restaurant, and they have the limo stays with you and takes you to whatever the next part of that package is that they're going to send you on. And ultimately, you just decide what you all want to do or not, because they can't make you do it. And they don't send a camera around with you or anything like that, like stuff today. But we got to our first destination, and we kind of sat there and looked at each other and went, "Well, you have a girlfriend, right?" He said, "Yeah, I do have a girlfriend." I said, "Well, do you want to go on this evening with her? Get me a cab." You can get me. We'll get me a cab. I didn't mean like anything mean. It just was like, it was clear we were going, well, we did the show. Now what do we want to do? But he had a girlfriend. Why not? Enjoy the night.
Lindsay, did you write your questions? Did they write these questions for you? Because there were some doozies. I'm not as...
I don't remember that so much. You might have to read them back to me.
All right, ready? If right in the middle of our first date, I turned into a chicken, what would you do?
Oh, Lord.
Wait, that's not even... And this one's funny, too. If my... bachelor number one. If my mother answered the door in a miniskirt and it was love at first sight, how would you handle it? Those were your questions. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that could have been my mother. Oh, what did he say?
Actually, I do know. He says, play it for laughs, awkward but amused, get tangled in the hypothetical. I don't even think they knew how to answer it. Or the chicken one. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. YouTube is amazing for hidden gems.
Right?
I will say, I met you once. You're in my little class here at a Motor City Comic Con. It was probably
Wow, that was a while ago.
Decade or so, longer than a decade, a little bit ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, and when I talked to Kenneth Johnson, I was like, "Oh, Kenny, I have met all of your greatest hits because I love everything he's done." So Mark Singer from V, Lindsay Wagner from The Bionic Woman, Lou Ferrigno from The Hulk. Exciting to have you on the show. He's
a special guy. Yeah.
Kenny, yeah, well, I love. We can dive a little into him in a second. When we dive into The Bionic Woman a little bit more, but I will say that my wife was like, "You're interviewing Lindsay Wagner?" I'm like, "Yeah," and like. She's like, wow, she was the shit. I wanted to be her when I was a kid.
Well, I wanted to be Jamie Sommers. So,
so before becoming Jamie Sommers, from modeling to acting, was acting always what you wanted to do? But modeling was how you got your start?
Modeling didn't have anything to do with acting. There was no transition from that to that. I stopped modeling before I ever started acting. I just didn't like it. I started really young. I looked older than I was. And it was the 60s and they weren't, how do I say this? Everything was trying to make it look sexy and all this kind of stuff. And I was 12 years old, 14 years old, and we were selling back to school clothes, but they want a little more hoo-hoo in it. And it just bothered me. I mean, I was also pretty savvy kid, and I just wanted to be talked to as a person, So it was irritating, but I was still pretty young and kind of embarrassed about calling them out, the photographers, for example. So it was uncomfortable. And at one point I just stopped. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. But I had already started studying acting, which didn't come through the modeling. it just came through the fact that I was babysitting for James Best and his wife. And you know who that is, right?
From Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Oh, was that his whole name?
Well, on the show.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. He and his wife, I babysat for them. And they were just very intuitive people. And I was not the happiest kid in the world at that time. No, what was going on with the family. And I would be very demonstrative and funny. And the more I would do that, they picked up that I was hurting more, right? And that's how I covered things. So they decided, I mean, I always think of it as over pillow talk or something. They said, I think this kid should do something for herself, because I babysat a lot and took care of my little sister, and my mom and I were together by ourselves for a long while. And so take care of her, and my mom would work nights so we'd shift off. They said, you just need to do something that kids do. And so she invited me to do the ballet thing. She was a ballet class. And of course, because I was a little girl, right? I was having trouble with it. They didn't really know much about dyslexia back then. So I had no idea that that's part of what some issues I was having in school. And it was going to affect my ability to learn to do a dance and execute it. So I was graceful, I was poised, I was tall, I could do all this stuff, but I couldn't remember 2 of these, 3 of these. Turn around, come back, do this one. The sequencing was just like my brain was going, I can't remember what to do. It wasn't a general memory problem. It was a sequencing problem. So, and that's years later when I ultimately did see some professional, I learned what that sequencing was and why it was hard for me to read at times, is because I would follow the line and somehow I'd find myself down on this one. And it didn't make sense why they said that and then that, because you're not on the same line. But anyway, the dancing thing, I think they started, if I was to imagine and write what I think went on with their pillow talk about their babysitter, was that I think she's feeling worse about herself rather than better about herself with what we're doing. We better change course here. So he asked me to come into his acting class. Maybe you'd like that. Well, let's see. I don't know. That's fine. I'll try it. What I didn't know was that he was an acting coach for working actors. It was during the studio system, very strong studio system time still, which meant that there were talent scouts that came out to look at the showcases that these types of actors honing their craft through a coach was going on. And he had people, Clint Eastwood, Ketty Lester. He had a bunch of people that were in television and big stars like that, and some on the feature end too. And then talent scouts would come out from the studios and they would go back and report to people that were making films or to the series casting department or whatever people and so that doesn't happen anymore, but that was part of things then. When I came into the class the first time, expecting to see young people and acting 101, and I sat down and said, I know that guy. Roger Davis from the whatever that, I can't remember the series name. And that's what are these people doing here? What am I doing here? So anyway, but it was so wonderful. It gave me, that's when I first started. Actually, I can probably say I first started my interpersonal journey through Jimmy, because he taught acting kind of like a consciousness class, or like class today self-awareness. And it just, for the first time, I felt myself being able to express pain that I was able to tap into and speak it through dialogue. Therefore, I felt comfortable, safe, allowing somebody to see that part of me, because it had somebody else's name on it. And so that was where my healing journey for myself, kind of spiritual journey in a way, as well as my career, which I had no idea was going to be a career at that time, because I didn't even watch TV. I didn't care. There was, when you think about it, it's hard for younger people to imagine that when I was a kid, well, early on, we didn't even have a television. They had just come out, and look at where we are today. I mean, it's crazy about all that. But anyway, so that's kind of how it all started.
It's amazing. It's just that he was able to give you that path to help you on your journey.
Which is why I always ended up doing the kinds of things that I wanted to do once I got into the industry, which I wasn't even trying to do that. They asked me, I think it was Fox, one of the scouts from Fox wanted me to come in and see them about a show that they were doing. It was a little girl's name. Anyway, they were just starting a new series. And Jimmy all of a sudden was very nervous about it. And he was saying, he was very cleverly talking me out of accepting the inquiry, because he felt that, well, he knew that, especially then, it's gotten better for kids in the industry, that they're more careful, he just didn't think that with my family kind of the way it was, that I would have enough external support to be able to go into that business and not, not have problems. So I turned it down, and he said, but when you get to be older, this is interesting, this part of my history. He said, when you get older and you want to go into it, that you do it, but you keep studying between now and then. And I said, and he said, and then you'll know when you get older. And I said, well, how will I know? And how am I going to know? If you're not around, I don't know. He said, well, if you feel it, you're just going to know. I'm telling you, you will know. It was almost like he was brainwashing me to set in my brain that at some point I will know. He said, when you feel like you have at least 1 foot on the ground, solid, if not 2, as an individual, an independent individual, whatever age that happens, then that's when to go do it. Because you'll also, by that time, have so much more to give. You'll know yourself. You'll be, that kind of thing. He went on with the whole thing. And I trusted him so much from the work that we did together, because his work, like I said, was kind of like consciousness class. And I kept doing things in his class. And my friend, who was in the same apartment building that we lived in, he used to come watch the showcases we did. And he was about 6 years older than me. And he was going to be this is dialogue. He was going to be a big shot in the movie for business. He wanted to be in the business end of it. And he ultimately was the head of the something at Universal. But he started in the mailroom, and he said, when you're ready to do it, and he'd call me every year or so, and I'd say, no, I don't think I'm ready. I don't know what that means anyway, but and one day I literally woke up just like that. And I went, I feel like I'm ready. And it was almost like I was talking to myself, and I didn't know why. Still have no explanation for it other than I was ready. And so I called him and I said, Pete, I'm ready. And he said, well, I won't say it with every word that he used in the sentence, but for blah, blah, blah's sake, Lindsay, we were right in the middle of an actor's strike. And I said, oh, of course I'm ready. Right in the middle of an actor's strike. He said, well, now that I know, he calls me back that afternoon and he says, you do anything tomorrow? And I said, well, no, why? He said, well, because I've talked to some of the casting directors down here at Universal. He knew all the guys, and he knew where he wanted to go. He wanted to go up that tower. And so he started like I said, he was still working for the mailroom, but he knew all those people in there. And he said, I have 3 of them that are willing to give you to do a reading, because they're on payroll. So in the strike, they have to be there. So they've got nothing to do. And so they said, come in and do a reading. It's like, oh my God, okay. So I went in, I did a reading for 3 of them. The next day, I get a call saying, Lindsay, they want you to play this one little part in Marcus Welby episode of a nurse, because they're able to finish the show as a result of them signing off that whatever happens with the vote, or the thing that was going on with the unions, whatever happens, they will not vote. So they've said they'll back out of the whole vote and everything if they're allowed to finish the episode they were making. And so they needed that nurse for that part, and they hired me for that part. I didn't have an agent or anything at that point. And Jimmy said, that was part of what he said to me. I mean, it's pretty weird. It's like, who made up this story? So I went in the next day after that and did the fitting. The day after that, I did the shooting. And the weekend following Monday, Monique James, who was the head of the contract players department, her office called and said they wanted me to come in and talk to them. And by Wednesday, I was under contract. Pete said, you're going to need an agent. I said, well, how do I get an agent? What do you mean? He said, why do I need? So he introduced me to David Shapira, and that's when she called. And so he said, now just kind of let your agent handle the deal. You just go talk to her. And in a week from the time I said I'm ready.
That's amazing.
Acting. I know, right? I mean, when I think of it, whenever I tell this story, I think it's crazy too, but it's cool.
James gave you really great advice. I kind of half think maybe he just didn't want to lose his babysitter right away. You know how hard it is to get a babysitter.
That's very possible.
Lindsay, you should wait.
Right?
Until my daughter's. No, no, but that is great. Plus, I talk to so many people who, when you do get into early, which I think, and you can't handle it emotionally, and then you get the fame and you lose it, which happens to a lot of people, if you're not prepared to handle it, then it can be a real spiraling. It was probably just giving you that good advice so that.
Well, very savvy. Yeah.
All right. So you're a universal contract player. Your 1971 was crazy. I mean, you were in like.
Yeah, I didn't stop working for years.
Tell me, in Night Gallery, did you get to work? Was Rod Serling there?
No. People ask me that all the time, and I have to say no.
Oh, that is a bummer. And then you got Owen Marshall, Lee Majors was on that, and then Adam 12. Yeah, you had all the big ones, and then movies, Paper Chase, and then you were in the pilot of the Rockford Files.
Yes, and the following episode too. They were going to actually bring me into it as that character, but Bionic jumped in the way.
How much did it cross over, like where you could have just ended up on the Rockford Files and never become Jamie Sommers? Was it that close or not that close?
As they were trying to create that character, I was not signed up for anything. And then 6 Mil came in and they wanted me to do that. So it was a choice, really. It was a...
Right. And if you're going to be a bionic superhero, you always go with that.
Well, I really wasn't, but yeah, that was a whole other story. It was very different. I was interested in doing that story because we were communicating with children. And I had a lot of thoughts and ideas about how to play things, how to do things that would give kids a realistic idea about themselves while watching a super, because there was a very different thing back then. They didn't have every single possible kind of super thing. I've got fire coming out of my nose. I've got, whatever, everything that you can possibly do. What these kids relate to, they're watching so much, because it does, I believe very strongly in the influence of television and movies on, well, everybody, first of all, but definitely children, and how they relate to themselves. Anyway, without getting too philosophical with that, I wanted to do shows. That was my interest in going into the business when I decided to stay and go ahead and do this thing, because I saw in my mind, in my heart, doing shows that would role model certain types of thinking and whatnot. When I looked at the series, and I actually asked that, really the only way I could do this show is if I could have collaboration rights on building the character. And they did give it to me. And Kenny was wonderful to work with on that, in that way, because he liked what I was wanting to do with it, which is, I didn't want to go in there and be a man in a skirt winning the game, because I was strong. Boink, I win, so we threw around ideas of what we could do to make it different, and how we can play with it more for kids, but also not just play with it to lighten it up, but to also write things. Of course, I can't think of a specific thing in this very instant, where ordinarily it would have been taken care of by the brawn, then that would be settled, it would be done. But instead, we work something out in the story to where Jamie's using her intuition or her cleverness kind of things, and using the physical brawn for the last resort. But in our formula requirements from the network, we had to have so many bionic things happen between commercials. I don't remember what the number was. And so that's where a lot of the fun and the humor came from. So we kind of restructured the formula, even though keeping the mandate of the bionics, which is where the fun came from. So it became more of, like opening the can because you can't find your can opener, and tuna, or writing on the chalkboard, that kind of stuff. Famous popping to get the kids' attention. Or no, that wasn't for the kids, was it? That was on the, playing tennis. But so that's how we kind of did some restructuring there. And Kenny got into the rhythm of, and the other writers, of course, I'm just saying that he was the band leader. So
Sure.
To have stories that can show, even though she is strong and can really win pretty much anything that comes along, that her sensitivity was always chosen first. And so we wanted to show that in a person, sensitivity and strength can coexist in anybody. And that's what we wanted to do. And so the stories did that. We talked back and forth.
I think that's what made the character so endearing. Why people wanted, whether they realize it or not, they're internalizing it, and why my wife wanted to be Jamie Sommers, and why I'm sure a million other kids did, and why they play Bionic Man and Woman, on the playground. And I think that definitely came through. And it's cool that Kenny made you part of the negotiation for how that character would be. And I know I joked about it being a superhero, but it was a human with just, some legs. You could jump, your arm was stronger, you could hear, just some additional benefits to get you through the day. This will be my most important question that I ask you in your real life at any time. Do you make that bionic sound in your head when you're doing something? Say, opening a jar of pickles.
I'd like to say yes, because it's a probably more fun answer, but no, not really.
If anyone would,
but other people do. People are at my house and they see me doing something and they'll do it. I don't have to.
That's so funny. The interesting thing with the origin of this character, and the series is 50 years old, but the character, 51 years old, because you debuted on the $6 Million Man, right, and you died. It was a two-parter.
I did.
You were his fiance, and you die. This was funny. So I was telling my kids this. I was just telling them like some of the cool backstory of this in the car, and they're like, "Well, how did they let them know that they were upset?" Because there was, in their heads,
without a computer, without a phone, without an iPhone.
I'm like, I think they wrote letters, and like, what? Yeah, a lot of letters.
A lot to the network, to the studio, to anybody they could, for sure. And it was parents, and they were furious, actually. How could you do that? The $6 Million Man was the quintessential father figure during that period of time. And then you create the mother figure, and then you just kill her right in front of the kids. And what's that about? And hospitals, there were about two or three, I know for sure. It was Boston Children's Hospital and one other big hospital that dealt with children. They wrote in and said, we had 75% of our kids in our something unit that were just traumatized by that. And what were you thinking? It was so all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, we got to do something about that. And that's where the second two-parter came in, and why they said, well, we froze her and and kept her alive just long enough to figure it out while we could bring her back to life. So here she is. And she's going to go take care of the kids. So the kids were like, the audience, which was pretty cool, that they did that. But I can't tell you how many people have told me at Comic-Cons, said, boy, you have no idea how upset I was and how I felt when people tell me this. I love hearing people's stories. I like hearing their stories about what their experience with the show.
Any top of mind one story you could share?
Oh, there were several. Yeah, a lot of stories. Well, that's one of them. And another is I've heard several times about how they used to watch it with their grandmother. And then, when she passed away, so now I can put one on and I can feel like I'm with my grandmother. Or other people tell me that they watched the show because they had a very difficult family life. And when they would watch with Jamie, they would imagine that she was like their mom. I mean, I tell you some of these stories, I'm going to start crying right here because I end up as does a day ever go by at a Comic-Con that I don't cry at least once. And other people tell me about I can't remember what this one lady, can't remember what the specifics were, but it had to do with how she got her job at NASA, and that she was very interested in that. A lot of people say, I became a teacher. I never thought about being a teacher until I saw Jamie, and then I saw her helping the kids, and it made me feel good. And you made me feel good, so I became a teacher.
That's amazing.
Somebody else did that. That story, they always say, what did Jesus say? Well, a lot of people told me, I thought, I'm in good company. Several people have said, I just say, well, what would Jamie do? At this.
And they can buy the same ring or necklace. So.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It must feel so good to hear those stories, to know that.
It does. And one of my favorite ones, when boys that used to watch me most of the time, when the young men were now old enough to come to a Comic-Con or whatever, they'd say, you were my first crush. And it's like, oh, thank you. But when another decade went by, like now what used to be the kids are now approaching 40 and a little over 40. I had so many people telling me, so many men in particular, that the show helped me realize that I could be strong and sensitive at the same time in one person, even being a man. And it was like, that was my heart just went, oh, that's so cool to hear. Because that was what we were, one of our goals with the show was to help people say just because you're strong doesn't mean, that you can't be sensitive and enjoy things, or that you have to use that as you've also got
That's amazing.
mind, you've got intuition. So
Yeah.
that just blew my mind. Yeah.
That's very cool. All right. Does it bother you that they never gave a price? You got the $6 million man. Later you got Maximilian. That's $1 million. They joke about it, but there's never. I think in Germany they called you the $7 million woman, and then in France you were Super
there was
Jamie.
Some little image conflict interest.
Right.
we weren't finished with the women's movement at that point. It couldn't be worth more than him.
They could have made it the same amount. You could have been the $6 million woman. Maybe they just didn't want. But I think they said the pieces were smaller, so it didn't cost as much. But really,
I've never heard that one. Well, that's a good one.
Yeah, but then that would be wrong too, because it would actually probably cost more to make something smaller. But anyway, now did your show outperform the Bionic Man? Right? I mean, your show kind of blew up, right? Yeah.
For a while.
Between the sets, was there animosity at all? Was there oh no, when the spinoff starts doing better than the original?
I think we were all too busy, because back then we didn't have second units who would go out and do all the stunt stuff and take a load off the main crew and the actors and everything. And we had so much special effects and stunts, which one jump took a long time, because there was I would do a takeoff, then they'd have to move the camera to another position to get the fall, and Rita would have to go in and then jump off backwards and go down, and they'd have to film that, and then they'd have to go up to the top, reset the camera again just to get one jump, so that they could see me jump off the platform and do the landing on this place up here wherever I was supposedly jumping to. So just to do that much time went in to do one jump. It was hard. It was really grueling, more so than just even a regular action show, because they just run around and peek around things and shoot each other.
Yeah, that sounds grueling. All right, so you guys are all too exhausted to be worrying about the other shows, because I assume the same thing with the $6 million man, one unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Both shows it just wasn't a thing back then.
Can we talk about, and go into as much detail as you want, when you got to kind of scuffle with Bigfoot?
Well, first of all, he smelled terrible. That's my primary complaint. That suit, I have no idea how many people wore it, and I have no idea if it ever was cleaned. And the poor guys that had to wear it, it was bad enough I had to hug him or get we're in his thing. It was, whenever I sign a picture for somebody with Bigfoot in it, I just I go, "Hey, Bigfoot, was that fun?" It was I just want to write, "It was stinky."
You're ruining my childhood. Stop. No.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. That was Ted Cassidy, Lurch from the Addams Family.
Yes. On my show, yeah.
Andre the Giant also played Bigfoot.
He did Lee's show, yeah. He was just busy doing another film when we came to do mine.
Well, it was an alien cyborg, so they could switch it around. It's all good. And when you're young and just watching a show like that, you don't really notice till years later, and you find out. So the Fembots were an issue, right? I mean, they scared kids. They are kind of. I was looking at it again. I was like, yeah, I could see where that was. I remember it.
I had issues with that myself, but well, yeah, they were pretty something.
The Bionic Woman was there was Wonder Woman movies with Linda Carter around the same time, but didn't go to series till after. But I think the only woman-led superhero was Secret of Isis, I think was on. But then you were probably the most well-known one in terms of a female-led action show. So that's pretty cool. So flash forward many, many decades and they reboot the show. How does it feel to have something of yours actually rebooted? You don't have to tell me how you feel about the show. I mean, it was very short-lived when the Bionic Woman was rebooted.
And failed? How do you...
Yeah. Well, it didn't have your charms.
Well, they didn't have anything. That was the thing. They should have named it something else, and they would have had a good show. It wasn't a bad show. It's just that somebody says, "Can I have it?" I want it. Oh, I love apples. I've been eating apples my whole life. I just love apples. I don't eat any other kind of fruit. And somebody hands you, an artichoke and says, "Here, eat this." Artichokes are great too, but I want an apple. That's what happened. They didn't have the tenderness. They didn't have the it was so violent, and it wasn't the show.
Your show, the original Bionic Woman, back to that one for a second. You were a victim of kind of regime change at the network, and the new guy comes in, and because your show was fire still. I mean, it was still hot in the ratings, and the guy decides, no, we don't want this show anymore for whatever
He wanted
reason.
everything that was out to be his creation. That's what the deal was. It's like in corporations, they do the same thing. A new head of the corporation comes in and they want to bring all their own people in. Similar thing happens in networks, and they want to have it be all their own created shows that they created. That's why the network is successful, so to speak.
So NBC picks up the show.
That was fun.
It's interesting because they didn't let Lee, like you weren't, and Lee Majors weren't allowed to crisscross, but Martin Brooks and Richard Anderson, Oscar and Dr. Rudy Wells, they were allowed. And I think this was the first time this happened, where they went across 2 shows across 2 different networks. Why they let them and not you guys do it? It was just because you guys were the main stars, so it was a little different?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I know the exact answer to that. There's no threat posed, I don't think, to those 2 characters started. They're embedded in 6 mil. And without them, Lee can't keep going, I don't think. That $6 million man character couldn't keep going. So they had to have him. But Universal still owned the rights to the Bionic Woman, and they were still making money on the Bionic Woman. So they would have to keep it as well. People were still making money on it, probably bottom line. That they couldn't, and it wasn't going to hurt the other people because NBC is already taking it. But now that networks and studios tend to be one family as opposed to 2 families that traded off things, I think that's how it's different today.
Got it. And then Jamie Sommers and Steve Austin, you guys were ranked, your characters were ranked number 19 in TV Guide's list of the 25 greatest sci-fi legends, solidifying you as a sci-fi legend. Well, we knew that. We didn't need TV Guide to tell us that. Did you love doing the remake, or not the remake movies, but did you love doing the reboots, the 3 reboot movies? Be able to come back as Jamie Sommers years later?
Yeah, we call them the reunions, yeah. Reunion movies, yeah. Yeah, no, that was fun. We had a chance, a few years to rest. And then start. Yeah, no, that was fun. Actually, that's when Lee and I actually got to know each other better, go to know each other and develop a friendship, which we never did before. It was different because we weren't on such a horrendous schedule, and there was more, I don't know how to describe it. The scripts were caper oriented, but there was a lot more human story in the bulk of the script. And so it wasn't just constantly all this other kind of stuff that, even though we're playing make-believe, it's exhausting because we have to kind of go there inside ourselves. And we were on location. That was fun. And I had my kids with me, so it was fun for me, and the kids were enjoying it.
That's amazing. The era of the reunion movies was one of my favorite times. Like yours, and like I lived for every single one of them. And you finally got married, which is great.
Well, that was, yeah, you can thank me for that. I always tease them about it because we were doing these reunions, and now we came at the 3rd one. They got one, and I said, "Are they getting married yet?" And I was harping, "Yeah, no." I was like, and I said, "Okay, here's the deal. They have to get married in this one, or I won't do it." And they said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "No, I'm not kidding. These poor people, these kids, they're full-blown adults now. Oh my God, they're having their own kids now." I said, they're going to keep them hanging forever. So I said, okay, we'll get married.
That's
Little
amazing.
did I know they got married, and that was the end of it.
Oh, man. Cool. And then I want to give you a chance to talk about, to celebrate the 50th, you have a website, bionic50.com.
Yeah, bionic50.com. It's a little web store that we put up for the celebration. And it's just got a few things that we thought would be fun. We've got video chats again, because like I said, I like to hear people's stories. So we're selling the opportunity for video chats with me on the website. And then we have a few photos that have not been distributed before. And so that's new stuff, as well as we have the script of the last episode of the Bionic Woman. And have you watched that one lately, since you were talking about having seen?
I haven't seen the last episode recently, no.
Yeah. Because I just watched it again, because I know people might ask me about, and I didn't know about the details, remembered, but it does so encapsulate Jamie's whole inner journey and the essence of what we wanted the show to show, so to speak, to kids, that who you are and what you are in here is more important than what you are out here, because that's what Jamie was struggling with. And that last episode was all about that, and why she was wanting to leave the OSI and all of that, because she just felt like she wasn't human anymore after doing because she was always working, always doing something like that, requiring that, and didn't have social life. So I was pleased when I saw it, actually. Usually I go, oh yeah, that's cool, I remember that. That was good. I like what we did there, I like what we did that when I've watched them from time to time. And that one I went, that was cool. They really just wrapped it up and summed it up. So having said that, the script of that last episode is one of the things, just a printed copy of it is what we're selling, so that people can have that ending.
Signed by you?
I signed it, yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's nice that you had a closure to the show as well, because, so many shows don't get that.
They don't get it. They just get whacked and they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because the end of that NBC story was that you moved to NBC because Fred Silverman took over. And then you start rocking at NBC. And who does NBC hire? Fred Silverman.
Funny? I know. It's so weird. I couldn't believe it. We just sat there in shock. Right? Who? And he did what?
There is a rumor, you can tell me if this is true or not, that when you found out that you personally called him, is this true? Was there any interaction you had with him?
No.
No, okay. Then
I remained a lady.
Okay, good. I like to, when I find certain trivias on the internet, I like to either debunk or confirm. And so you did not. But yeah, so Fred comes in and has a thing for your show, which makes no sense to me. The egos.
Well, it was the same thing.
I'm saying like the egos.
He's now coming in here and he's going to make everything here his creation. And where did this pesky woman come from? Like he had a fly swatter with my name on it or something.
Oh, man. I'm so appreciative of you spending time with me and celebrating your 50th.
Yeah. So for anybody who wants to indulge in any of that, it's bionic50.com.
Thank you, Lindsay Wagner.
Also this weekend, can I just say I'm going to be at the Central Carolina Comic-Con. They call it Central, it's not easy to say. Central Carolina Comic-Con, and it's in Columbia.
We have to get you out to the Motor City Comic-Con again.
Okay, let's do that. So you're obviously still there? You live there?
Yeah, I live here. That's my my cool. Local Comic-Con. So
okay.
Yeah, 50th anniversary. You definitely should come back. People would love that.
All right. Well, you stir that pot and I'll see you when I get there.
I'll do it. It sounds good. Thank you, Lindsay Wagner.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.